the ancient roots of theater, even the Elizabethan roots of theater. Like, it's actually a very recent invention that we go to the theater and we just sit down and we stay quiet unless we're like allowed to laugh and clap. At least in the context of what we're doing, we really see it as like invoking the ancient power of ritual theater to induce these new states of consciousness. And that, I think, is what participation does. It really creates like the ability to be lifted out into a really like immediate and jolting awareness of something in themselves that maybe they don't get to see very often.
Thank you so much for joining me today. Everybody, this is Morgane, Ciot, and Alice Maynwaring, who have a production company together. What's the name of your company?
The Classics Department.
The Classics Department. And you have a new piece coming up in New York City.
It's called Psychomagic 9. And it's heavily inspired by Jodorowsky's 1973 cult classic film, The Holy Mountain. We're trying to really capture the spirit of the film, but it's also takes place on the film set of a remake of The Holy Mountain. So it's also kind of a love letter to the creative, chaotic process of making not just a film, but any ridiculously ambitious work of art with a group.
That's so fun. Yes, you guys sent me the treatment, and I was starting to read it and digest it. I was really enjoying it. But tell me a little bit about like the history of your productions and performances and what you've worked on together.
Yeah, we started collaborating on sort of like underground party art, and that's how we met and started fusing together as a creative duo. The last big production, the first 3 productions that we worked on together for some reason were like dating shows, live theatrical dating shows, that were initially modeled off this, that were sort of done in the spirit of Eric Andre, one of the OG pranksters. And we were calling that chaos theater. So we started doing like these chaos theater performances that were initially a little bit like designed to galvanize people at festivals or parties into collective effervescence and like a more intense party spirit. And one of those shows called Dating Show to Save the World, it was recorded, and for some reason that recording arrived in the hands of Stephen Gurdjieff, the founder of Manifold Markets, which is a prediction market startup. And he loved it, and he was like, I want to commission you guys to do exactly this, but with prediction markets, which is just like a totally absurd thing that could only really happen in Silicon Valley. But he was like, industrials used to be a thing, like industrial musicals, like back in the 50s, like Kleenex would hire like a Broadway musical company to create like a whole Broadway musical for their employees. Lionizing Kleenex, and also like to foment team spirit. Yeah, and this was that kind of thing, except it wasn't only for their employees. It was for like building lore within a certain subculture in the Bay Area. So
that's so fun.
Yeah, it was great. That was really the biggest project we have done up till now. And
what was that called?
It was called Bet on Love. You can find it on YouTube. It was live streamed. The cinematography is gorgeous. It's a really, really well done recording. But it's basically this dating show, musical, hybrid, surreal, existential odyssey, interactive. It is a chimera. Yeah, and that's what we love to do. Just the Psychomagic 9 is also going to be very chimerical. Mm-hmm. As I said the other day, chimerical, alchemical, and theatrical. Spiritual.
Chimerical. What is chimerical? What does chimerical mean for you? Kind of just whimsical in a way, or mysterious?
No, like a composite of many different things. Like we really like doing genre bending things with like the ultimate aim of drawing everyone into something that feels like real. Yeah. And like actually real, not
like everyone, it's like a little bit difficult to use these terms because they're always used in marketing. But we take them like really, really seriously.
Yeah. And we blend different formats together to create something that isn't really any of them, but has elements of all of them. And that's what's chimerical about it. Like Psychomagic 9 is part theater, part improv show, part LARP,
and part ritual.
How do people buy tickets and learn about it and all that stuff?
Well, we're happy to announce we're sold out.
Oh, you're sold out already.
Totally sold out. Yeah.
Yeah. And there is a wait list, though. There is a wait list.
Yeah. So you can go to classics-department.com/upcoming, and that will give you more information about the show, and it'll link to an Eventbrite, and then you can like get on the wait list for the Eventbrite. But I would also recommend signing up for our emails, because we're hoping to do a second run of the show.
Yeah, it's looking fairly likely that we'll do a second run, if at all possible, just because the enthusiasm around this run has been pretty strong so far.
So tell me a little bit about LARPing for people who don't know what it is.
Yeah, LARPing. It's short for live action role play. And it's a little bit of a cursed term, to be honest, because I think usually when people think about LARPing, they think about like people in the woods with foam swords yelling fireball, fireball. And that is one kind of LARP, but there's a whole other world of LARP that's called parlor style or theater style LARP. That's more character and motivation driven. And I mean, that's the kind of stuff that I'm really interested in. And it's basically an opportunity to take on a character in a fully immersive setting. I mean, I think in a sense, like LARP is kind of where immersive theater is heading toward and wants to go, and where a lot of these immersive theater fans, like, they're sort of dancing around the edges of LARP. Like they're kind of edging themselves with like not quite being into LARP, but like, oh, maybe we'll go. And I think we're trying to find the place sort of in between, where we're pulling them a little bit deeper into a world where you're actually making real decisions. Like you're really playing a character like moment by moment and like having an impact on the story. You have objectives to pursue. You can change them. And but you're really pursuing objectives as an audience member in Psychomagic 9.
Yeah.
And that's the LARP. That's kind of the LARP piece that we're bringing in.
Yeah.
It's not
it's definitely not as involved as LARP. And we're trying to make sure that it's designed in such a way that you can always hang back.
Yeah.
Because not everyone is like a diver, and we have designed this show primarily for divers. There's like a term. There's a term in immersive theater that's like you're either like a waiter, a swimmer, or a diver,
which is like just basically different categories of people's preferences and like how deeply they like to plunge into the world and be a part of it.
Yeah, and most people, I mean, it seems like right now one of the problems with immersive theater, particularly in New York, aside from like things like larger structural things like space, like renting space is a huge issue. People staying in and going to the theater less is also a huge issue. But one other thing that I think is endemic to immersive theater, particularly in New York, is that everyone seems to be really afraid to make theater for divers. But there's still kind of like a thirst. There is diver thirst out there, and everyone sort of like thinks that they got it from things like Sleep No More, which imprinted itself on the it really imprinted itself on the psyches of everyone, like a mama bird. Like it's like the first thing that you saw in immersive theater, and you're like, oh my god! And I had that reaction. Like I love Sleep No More so much, but I think
but you weren't really a character in the
you're
play.
Not
you were just
you're kind of. They describe like the audience design principle as a roving camera. So you're like a roving camera around the space of what is effectively, as you described it the other day, like an art or like a dance installation. And it's beautiful and incredible, but I think it like awakened a thirst for people, like the fact that you could like go around in a sandbox environment, really awakened and eat the candy and stuff, really awakened a desire to just be able to like do stuff in a world. And then that awakened a desire to like have more agency. And the people who have been in the LARP world for a long time like already know that this exists. But the people who haven't don't really know that it exists. And like Alice said, like just associate LARP with like hitting people in the head with a foam sword. So we're trying to do something that's like actually cool. That's actually like that people think is actually cool to just eventually incent them into the LARP world.
Did you do one recently that's had to do with like Klaus Kinski and Werner Herzog or something like that?
Yeah, so that was effectively sort of the proof of concept for Psychomagic 9. We didn't know it was at the time, but that's what it turned out to be. At the Sundance Film Festival this year, we ran a very small immersive party performance experience. It's a similar format to what we're going to do with Psychomagic 9, where you, the audience, are members of a film crew that has gone out of control. In this case, it was a film crew that was being dominated and chaos implanted by Klaus Kinski, the famous 20th century German actor and notorious feral beast of a human. So we had our own, Klaus Kinski lookalike, our muse and star Duncan Horst, who will also be the star of Psychomagic 9. He played Klaus Kinski, and people came in. They were introduced in a brief scene with Klaus's terror on set, and then they were sort of sent around this party environment where there were other characters who were giving out quests to try and get the production back on track. And
decide whether or not they were going to kill Kinski.
kill
Klaus Kinski right, by the end of the night.
Yeah. And this was us trying out, like, okay, how is it possible to make enough like quest-based content that people can really be engaged and entertained for 2 or 3 hours and have it not feel repetitive or slow, or like people can be, and it went really incredibly well. It really felt like a party, but a party where everyone always had something intense to do at all times.
Yeah, and that's one of the principles that we're borrowing from LARP. In LARP, or certain styles of LARP, they say, like, always give people too much to do. Mm-hmm. That makes you feel like you're kind of hyper engaged in the world, and like a little bit of overwhelm with the option to always like step back just goes a long way towards like producing this like charged adrenaline feeling that we want to use as like a substrate to bring people into, a meaningful effort.
And why do you think people are more interested in these more like immersive, participatory spectacles? Do you think like people are just tired of theater? I mean, why are you guys more attracted to doing this than doing just like a normal play or performance or something like that?
I am a traditional theater kid and come from that world to some extent, and I love traditional theater, but I think everyone is very, very used to framed entertainment, at home with video games, with streaming services. I don't think going to the theater offers as much that you can't get at home, which I hate to say because I do think it offers something that you can't get at home, but I think that it's been somewhat diluted, and especially because, well, okay, I'm gonna tell an anecdote, right? I went to a local theater production about a year ago, and it was a musical. And at the end of the musical, they came out for the curtain call, and there was an encore, and they sang another song. And like the audience gave a standing ovation during the curtain call, right? And then when the actors started to sing again, the audience all went really quiet and sat down right away. And I was so like angry because that isn't what theater is supposed to be. It's not supposed to be this place where we're like domesticated into like following rules and being like, oh, shut up. It's only happening up there. That's not the ancient roots of theater, even the Elizabethan roots of theater. Like, it's actually a very recent invention that we go to the theater and we just sit down and we stay quiet unless we're like allowed to laugh and clap. And I think like at least in the context of what we're doing, we really see it as like invoking the ancient power of ritual theater to induce these new states of consciousness. And that, I think, is what participation does. It really creates like the ability to be lifted out into a really like immediate and jolting awareness of something. It'll be different for everyone, right? But something in themselves that maybe they don't get to see very often.
Mm-hmm. And people are just like really thirsty for meaning. And when a piece of art is designed as an event, like a capital E event, as opposed to something that is just like repeated every single day, or like, just repeated ad nauseum, and that everyone has seen and that doesn't change at any time. Like, it just feels like a little bit less real. It feels like there's meaning, but it's encapsulated on the proscenium, and it's like not actually part of your own life or the story of your own life. And we we started off working together throwing events, and that I think informed a lot of my thinking about like what I want one individual theater piece to be. I want it to be like a capital E event. So in the case of Bet on Love, it felt like an event because it was speaking directly to a community. It was like, I basically love theater that like is sort of like a stunt, but with like more psycho-spiritual verve. And I think a really, really great example of this that happened recently was called Burnout Paradise by Pony Cam. It was at the St. Anne's Warehouse, and I actually didn't get to go see it, but my friend told me all about it, and I like totally fell in love with it from afar because it's exactly, it really like did a really good job of doing part of what I want to do in theater, which is creating something that is real and that has actual stakes. Like not just that the characters have stakes in the piece, but that the whole thing, the thing as a whole has stakes. And what they did, it was about what it's like to be an artist in New York. And so they had 4 treadmills, and each performer was on a treadmill, and they had to run the whole time. They had to run during the whole show. And each treadmill represented one aspect of being an artist in New York. So one treadmill was like actually doing the art, taking care of family, taking care of like life logistics, and then like doing like art fundraising or something. And they had like a bunch of tasks that they had to complete while running on the treadmill. And it was participatory, so the audience could like help you complete tasks and, you know, through like improv or things like that. And the catch is that if they didn't beat their personal record of like miles run every single show, they gave the audience their money back. And my friend was like, I've never seen an audience so like galvanized and charged. Just the energy in the room was chaotic and frenetic. And I was like, yes, that is it. That's like a thing that has real stakes. And it's because it's like an event. It's something that you can't just like replicate forever and like disseminate through the void. Like it's just happening now. And whatever's happening now is like non-fungible.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, like what does it feel like to really care about something? I think sometimes people need a safe container to really care. And we want to give them a moment of feeling this like, you know, jolt in their bellies or solar plexuses of like, holy wow, I really care about this right now. I care about it so deeply and I'm so absorbed and I'm just like pushing to achieve this objective. And yeah, we want to give people that experience.
Yeah, that makes sense because people generally are like, you know, kind of maybe getting a little more shallow and distracted and emotionless somehow, maybe through all the social media and so on. So how do you re-embody them or reconnect them and stuff?
Yeah. And guarded. And there's guarded. Like, there's a feedback loop between creators and consumers, audience is a better term, where vocal minorities in the audience are kind of like afraid of being unsafe. And then creators are responding to that by creating like safe content that focuses a little bit more on like creating like tender experiences or like tiny little moments of poetry or something, but not like digging any deeper because they're afraid of like trampling people's boundaries. And then the audience is like, oh, this is, you know, it's self-reinforcing. The audience is like, oh, right, this is kind of what I want because this is kind of nice. And then they demand more of that. And it goes on and on. And then eventually you think like, this is the way it's supposed to be. Forgetting that it's not. And I mean, like, you know, I think New York has gotten like this. I think LA is a little bit less like this, actually. I think LA immersive theater is sort of thriving. I'm not totally sure, but it feels like a lot more alive than in New York. And it's coming out of the immersive horror scene. And of course, as soon as the framing of horror is on it, you get permission to do things that are a little bit more intense.
Yeah, but in New York, the immersive theater situation is rather dire. There isn't actually very much.
A dire situation.
Yeah, it's pretty dead.
And it seems like you're sort of like, if you're talking about kind of a little bit of like shock effect, it sounds like you're talking a little bit, suggests like transgressive history, counterculture, avant-garde. I mean, do you sort of connect to that kind of lineage? Like who do you feel is like your kind of lineage when you look back through time and think about what you're doing?
Yeah,
that's a good question.
That's a really good question. I mean, I'm definitely a big fan of Artaud, and the whole concept of the theater of cruelty, and the idea of like creating a happening that is meant to wake the audience up. Of course, Artaud did not really implement his ideas very much at all, but they were influential throughout the rest of the 20th century. And Grotowski is also, of course, a huge influence.
Grotowski, yeah. We've been rewatching My Dinner with Andre leading up to the show because we resonate with the ideas about theater.
Yeah, My Dinner with Andre is a film from the 80s that's just a conversation between two men about the power of theater to transform, to spiritually transform, and yeah, we've been rewatching that, and that's also a big inspiration for us. And I mean, I also just want to say, like, I'm a big fan of Gurdjieff and the Gurdjieff work. Gurdjieff was a spiritual teacher from the early 20th century who was very heavily influential on Jodorowsky. And we are definitely bringing in some Gurdjieff influence into the show, direct from Gurdjieff, and he also was very interested both in to some extent in theater and performance, and also in the process of using shock to make people more awake. And he felt that shocks needed to be custom designed for specific people. It wasn't like you could just sort of like have some kind of shock ritual initiation. It didn't work that way. It needed to be attuned to where they were at that time. And although we can't necessarily custom design anything for an audience member quite yet with the show, we're kind of achieving that actually just because there's so much diversity in the content that we've created and so many different places for people to go. And we see it as we're creating this like magical container where people will find the experience that they need to have.
That's the hope. Yeah. The hope is to design it like a fractal pattern of psychomagic, where the whole show is like one big psychomagic act. The individual characters are each have an arc designed around the idea that if they don't get jolted out of their default personality programming, they will just end up in a psychic death. And then so they're all going to undergo, like, to use a Gurdjieff term, like a super effort to attain, to wake up. And then we also want the audience to be experiencing psychomagic or like doing their own.
Yeah, when I read the treatment, I saw you were talking about 9 characters representing 9.
Yes, 9.
The 9 points of the Enneagram or whatever.
Fans of the Enneagram. I'm
yeah,
essentialist, and I've just, especially in the last few years, have come into more contact with the idea that we are cursed by our gifts. Like that, like, personality is this sort of like ingrained operating manual for how to be. And so it's just a way to make our search for being like a little less uneasy. But it's so deeply ingrained within us that without some sort of huge moment where you're like, oh shit, like the bad things that I'm doing have been like my destiny all along, without a moment of realization like that, you could just like end up like this calcified version of your own personality.
Yeah.
I've just seen so deeply that happening to like me and my friends and like people. And like, I just, the Enneagram is imperfect. Obviously, no system is great, but it has like really, really good descriptions that focus on that aspect of being. And of course, like it was like a huge thing on the original set of The Holy Mountain. Oscar Ichazo, who created like the Enneagram typing system, and drew some influence from Gurdjieff, was on the set of The Holy Mountain as a sort of spiritual advisor. Yeah. So we're paying.
And was it because didn't they have like 9 main characters in Holy Mountain? The sort of 9 power people or whatever. Maybe there's only 7. I can't remember.
Yeah, there were like 7 planets plus the thief plus the prostitute, or plus someone else.
I forget how many there are at the very end.
I think there were like 9 in the fellowship total, but probably included the alchemist. And we have 9 characters plus an alchemist figure
and a few other bonus.
A garden.
What do you?
Sorry, go ahead.
No. What do you kind of, like you said that you want the audience to undergo like a transformational process, or what would you like people to come away from the experience with?
think one thing for me is feeling like it is possible to do real things as a sovereign adult with other sovereign adults in a semi-fictional setting. That's one aspect. That we can all just do something real together.
In an imaginary reality somehow.
I say semi-fictional because, of course, we're in a fictional setting and there's a story unfolding, but also we're hoping that the psychomagic, so to speak, that people are practicing, like, connects to something real in their life. You know, they'll be... Go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead. Finish yours. I didn't go. By the way, I'm watching the video on my laptop at the same time I'm talking because I can't see it on my phone, so I'm getting a lag. So I see anything you're saying from like 10 seconds ago or something, 8 seconds ago or something. I also noticed that you had invited people to bring their ketamine prescriptions to the event, and that was sort of interesting. That seemed a little transgressive. Now everybody, I guess, has ketamine lozenges and helpful kind of like therapists and so on. But I mean, what do you think of the impact of ketamine in general? I mean, I think, do you think it's having a cultural influence? Is it a good influence? Is it a bad influence? How is it influencing, what you're putting out here?
It's both. It's certainly both. I think ketamine is evidently one of like the miracle drugs for depression in psychiatry. It is like one of the few things that psychiatrists have been remotely excited about in the last 20 years. That said, it's not really it's not perfectly effective. We're still a long way from like figuring something out in that regard, and it's unclear if we ever will, because obviously depression is like a composite of many other important things that you need in your life to feel okay and held.
But ketamine also, one of the beautiful things about it is that it's very gentle. So we think it may be an interesting... we think it's very worthwhile to experiment with using ketamine in these kinds of performance immersive contexts, because it can saturate everything with a little bit of poetry or meaning, and sort of wake up what's happening without being too overwhelming. So we're just interested. We're interested in exploring that. We don't know how many people will take advantage of this invitation. Obviously, there aren't too many. Many people do have ketamine prescriptions these days, but what percentage of people who come to our show are going to have it, we don't know. But we wanted to put the option out there and just see how many people would take it, and if they do, what will that experience be like for them in the show? What will it be like?
We have a specific ritual designed around that part of the show. So there's going to be a little container within the broader container of the show where that happens, and where they'll be guided through a very gentle ritual, and then, given a suggestive path through the rest of the show that would harmonize well with their...
It's not just that we're telling people, oh, bring your ketamine and take it whenever. Like
it's part of the narrative. There's like, a spiritual drug in the narrative, in like the fictional universe, and we'll have like a specific kind of storyline for the ketamine usage.
I had a non-theatrical question for you. You're both like roughly like 30-ish, and you're living in New York. I'm curious. I write a lot about Trump and the techno-fascist kind of thing that's happening. I'm kind of curious how people in your circles and your communities are, if they're responding to it at all, or if they're just taking ketamine and just disassociating from it.
There's definitely both, representation of both for sure. I mean, we have I'm not sure if we should talk about. We have a friend who is kind of like our community, like Cassandra. He's been warning about this sort of stuff for a while and has been keeping us abreast in a more intimate way. And so there are people in the community basically preparing for what is potentially coming. Some are tuning into that, some are tuning out. It's always like I would say it's a mixed bag.
There are certainly some discussions about how bad things could get and the many different scenarios that could occur and how to prepare for them. It's these discussions are happening to some extent, but they're certainly not overwhelming or daily occurrences, I would say.
Yeah, or not for everyone.
Not for everyone.
And you have a little bit of an apocalypse theme in your Holy Mountain show, or you're talking about threading that in there a bit?
A little bit. This is something that like I really like as a theme in general, and I think has like a lot of resonance with what's happening right now, both with like AGI, with Trump, with like a number of other things. We have not unfortunately done like a great job of like weaving that in to the show, but like on Bet on Love we had an apocalypse theme, and I like the idea of like bring that in because it feels so like visceral and real and right now.
And it may be in there a little more than we expect, given that Duncan, our star, is going to be improvising quite a lot.
Yeah.
And Duncan's skill, like one of his great skills, is his ability to pull all these different streams of information from all these different parts of culture at like the psychological level, way up to the broad cultural, geopolitical level, and like condense them all into like a stream of verse and poetry.
Into the fire hose.
Yeah, that ties it all together into like, and here's what the ritual magic of the moment is. So
yeah, it's something that we want to think a little bit more carefully about, but it's also something that we might weave in much more deliberately in hopefully when we do the Moonster Rebellion immersive theater show.
Another concept
that we have.
What is that one? By the way, I also wanted to comment on the incredible looking liquor cabinet behind you. Is that what it is? I see these bottles that look like perfumes or potions.
I know, it's beautiful.
It's my roommate.
Yeah, Morgan's roommate is an interior designer.
Oh, okay. But they're not just alcohol though. It's like perfumes and potions, it looks like.
Yeah, there's some kind of like decorative vessels.
Yeah, we have a good little background here. It's nice.
Yeah.
Well, and by the way, I mean, I do know Jodorowsky a bit, and when I didn't realize until I read the treatment how completely different from Holy Mountain this is. I think that he probably would enjoy learning about it. So if you want, we could like send him a message or something like that.
You would love that.
Yeah, I think we should.
Yeah.
We've been thinking it over, and it's like, is there an ask here? But I don't think we have much of an ask besides for his blessing.
Yeah, the ask is just a blessing, maybe.
Yeah,
we don't.
I think that's all you're gonna. I think at this point in his life journey, it's about all you would get.
Yeah, but that would be huge.
It would be really wonderful. I would love. I mean, I think the framing is like actually more about Psychomagic than about Holy Mountain. Holy Mountain is sort of just like the excuse for the film set, but Psychomagic is like the real propulsive thematic force behind all of this.
Yeah.
Like, and I fell in love a long time ago with like his book Psychomagic, about this therapeutic modality that he came up with. So it's a little bit more about that. Yeah.
Sure. Really about the spirit of the whole of Jodorowsky, not just Holy Mountain, but Jodorowsky and his
Jodorowsky
work
as a
and
character.
philosophy.
Jodorowsky's Dune, Psychomagic, like the way that he relates to art. I think we want to relate to art piece the same way that he relates to his pieces.
Well, I think maybe we could sort of like wind down for today. I really appreciate you taking this time to spend some time with me here. And I feel a little bit disappointed though, because I thought we were going to like try to sell tickets for you, but you sold all your tickets. We don't need to do that right now. But how do people? And I hope you reserved my ticket because I wasn't able to get through your thing. But how can people learn about what you're doing and follow you and all that stuff? Like, do you have like websites and like all that kind of things?
We have a website. We technically have a Twitter also. The best thing to do is sign up for our mailing list right now.
We'll be hopefully coming out with like more information about a second run.
Yeah, which you can do on the front page of our website. Classics-department.com.
Yeah, I can also type it in here.
Yeah, say it again, classics-department.com.
Yeah, classics-department.com.
Okay, cool. And you have an Instagram also? That's often a good way for people to...
We don't have an Instagram yet, but we will. We're working on it.
We don't like Instagram.
We don't really like
it. I guess people can also subscribe to your Substack here, and you can...
I think they should sign up for a newsletter.
Yeah, signing up for the newsletter is the best thing for now.
Well, was there anything crucially important that I missed that you wanted to talk about?
Not really.
Yeah, I don't think so. That's the main thing. Just if people want to sign up and come to our second run, which is very likely to happen, that would be great.
Amazing. Okay, cool. Well, thanks, guys. Thank you for hanging out, and I'll send this out to the world. Yeah.
Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you, Daniel.